Okay, so the world building in Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts is completely broken. Hi, welcome to the party. Before we get started, a quick shout out to all my patrons who voted for this video topic. As if talking about Dumbledore in the last episode didn't raise my blood pressure enough, today we're talking about Harry Potter again. And I might get kinda ranty. So, yeah, Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. The world building does not make sense. Let me explain. There's really three components to this that make everything fall apart if you think about it too much. And I do. I do think about it too much. One, these stories are meant to be set in our world, with the same history, cultures, countries, and geography as our own. 2. The Statue of Secrecy states that magic people have a separate society from non-magic people and do not reveal their existence for any reason. Apparently, this is a global agreement. 3. Muggleborn witches and wizards exist. The three of these do not gel. Any two of them could work together okay, but all three of them, no. On a Watsonian level, they just don't make sense. And if you aren't sure what I mean by Watsonian, my last video goes into some detail on that, so go check that out. Now, let me say that the issues I'm about to get into have always been there with this series, but when it was just Harry Potter, when the setting was confined to the school year of one British boy in relatively modern times, it was easy to not think too much about. However, with the new Fantastic Beasts content, and the setting expanding to focus on more parts of the world, especially the US, and in the past, particularly the 1920s, the glaring holes in the world building have become more and more unavoidable. At least for me. I think about these things a lot. Like, J.K. Rowling doesn't really understand American culture or history very well. Like, it feels like not a lot of research happened. The biggest example is, well, the Native American stuff. J.K. Rowling tried to incorporate some Native American culture into the new Fantastic Beasts Pottermore content, and it's not done well. I'll put a link in the info below. It's bad. She seems to have done what she always did when the story was set in Britain. Take something from mythology or legend or folklore and give it a twist to fit it into her world. But doing this with Native American religious beliefs, it shows, at best, a glaring lack of research, and at worst, a flagrant disregard for the history of violence forced on those communities. Okay, this brings me to the foundational cracks of the world building. So, if the series is set in our world, the Statue of Secrecy makes perfect sense. We need a Watsonian reason why Muggles don't know about magic stuff. And you can see how, given the European and American history of witch hunts, prejudice and violence against magical people could create a society that isolates itself from the rest of the world. Witches and wizards would find that having magic was the axis on which to form a separate community. This would totally work if magic was purely hereditary, if all magical people came from magical families. I could maybe buy it then. But Muggleborns existing breaks this. Now, Doyleist reasons for Muggleborns existing makes perfect sense. It allows J.K. Rowling to have her little racism allegory in the first books, and it works to enhance the reader wish fulfillment appeal of the series. But it breaks the world building completely. Because if you think about human history, you know that people are, well, really, really bad about doing horrific things to each other, especially along the lines of race, ethnicity, and religion. So, transatlantic slavery, the genocide of Native Americans, European colonialism in India and Africa, the Holocaust. There's a lot of really, truly horrific events in history that were persecuted along those lines. So many I can't even begin to name them all. So what happens when a magical child is born into slavery on a cotton plantation in the American South? Do officials from Ilvermorny, or however you pronounce it, show up, buy that child from her slave owners, take her away from her family, take her to school, and she never returns? Does she forget her friends and her family? Does she align herself with the magical community that has done nothing to help her Muggle relatives and has a form of slavery of their own, and just go into hiding? Or would the enslaved peoples of the Americas lead a slave revolt that would fundamentally alter American and world history forever? If you had real magic, why would you not use it in this situation? Now, here's a piece of history. The real, actual Haitian Revolution had several figures who were voodoo priests that rallied people and led the revolution to victory over the French, ending slavery on the island of Haiti forever. That really happened in real life. So, in a version of our world where real magic on a scale and power that we see in Harry Potter exists, how would chattel slavery be able to maintain itself in any way, shape, or form? Unless you come to the conclusion that witches and wizards born into those communities would all just completely abandon it, despite having the power to help, which is absurd. That isn't how people are. If your family is in the middle of 400 years of chattel slavery, having the magical power to kill your slave masters is not a reason to isolate yourself from your family. And, okay, why would witches and wizards born into the Cherokee Nation not use their magic to defend their homes and their families? Use your magic to stop the Trail of Tears. Kill Andrew Jackson with magic. Why not? And the implication that maybe it's because they went off to school that they would be pacified into allowing this because they were brought to a European-style boarding school has a lot of really bad historical undertones. Residential schools are a very, very dark part of history in this country that I don't think J.K. Rowling maybe knows about or is intentionally drawing on. I don't think it's intentional. None of this is intentional on her part, which is why the explanations to try and make sense of it are awful. To make this be our world with our history, with the Statue of Secrecy, and have Muggleborns, as soon as you apply any of that to actual real history, it falls apart. To make the world building work, you either need to assume that Muggleborn witches and wizards would abandon and ignore the suffering and oppression of their Muggle communities, which is just very ignorant of human nature, and it downplays these atrocities. Or, maybe worse, we have to assume that white European witches and wizards were actively complicit in these atrocities, that they were silencing or killing witches and wizards who would try to put them to an end. And I feel like J.K. Rowling doesn't want to go to that place. I don't think she's thought about this. I don't think it's intentional or deliberate. It's just sloppy. It's just poorly thought out, so that the only Watsonian in-text explanations are terrible. It's not intentional, but it is unavoidable if you think about it for too long. Which I do. I do think about things for too long. So yeah, thank you to everyone who watched this, and a special thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon, especially Vextifer, Garrett Robinson, Heba Assad, Sebastian Warren, and Adrian Alvarez. You guys are the best. Right now, if you go over to my Patreon, there's a poll up for the next video topic, and a place for y'all to put your questions for the Patreon Q&A that I'll be doing in a few days. So if you liked this video, do all the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, share, comment. Is there a book or movie that you think does a really good job with this kind of world building? Let me know. Have an idea for another video? Let me know. If you liked this and want more videos of this queer millennial feminist rambling and ranting about stuff, I will see you next time.